This is David Finzer broadcasting for the second hour from the Gibraltar of the Balkans, the historic city of Novi Sad, along the banks of the beautiful Danube River here in Serbia. You can join our conversation by calling toll-free in the U.S. and Canada at 1-855-655-2121 or by Skype at ORN Live, or you can email me at david@truthandliesradio.com or post a message on Truth and Lies Radio Show's Facebook page. According to the U.S. debt clock, the total U.S. national debt is $15,762,711,000, which works out to $138,596 per taxpayer, while the gross domestic product is only $15,193,458,000,000. The total U.S. debt, all combined, is $57,622,564,000,000, or $183,688 per citizen. Now, if the Exim Bank goes broke, like we talked about at the end of the last hour, then you get to add that to that national debt $140 billion more. Sort of should make you warm and comfortable knowing that Mr. Obama is doing his best to look out for us. Well, today, of course, is Wednesday, D-Day, and as normal, we have today our special guest, our U.S. injustice expert, Juan Torres, defense attorney, on the phone from Florida, still with his cold. I told him I think he's not drinking enough. If you drink enough, then germs can't live in that much alcohol, but he doesn't seem to be taking my advice and is still sick. Hello, Juan. Can you talk?
Good afternoon, David. How are you?
Better than you.
Oh, I know you are. I know you are. This cold's got me down, but I'm here anyway.
Well, that's good. I mean, an attorney that can't talk, well, actually, in some ways, it's sort of a blessing, but that's not in this case. We need you to talk.
Wait until I get there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know. I'll tell you, Juan. I'm going to pull a little surprise on you because Tim Sutton from Scott and Tim's America, my favorite radio show that I listen to on ORN, usually I listen to it during lunch, has been wanting to ask you a question. And since I would never presume to speak for you, unless I could do it to annoy you, Tim's going to join us, and I'm going to let Tim ask his own question. Tim, are you with us?
I am, David, and I appreciate you letting me come on the show today. And Juan, I didn't really want to ask this question. I wanted to ask more about maybe Cuban cigars, something that would be a little more lighthearted, but it kind of has gotten to me a little bit because being of Asian American descent, I would be kind of upset if this was brought out about a culture band on myself. But first, before we get into it, I want to ask you, what's your feelings on Marco Rubio overall, being that he is a Cuban descendant, since you are Cuban yourself, Juan?
Yes. Hi, Tim. Well, let me tell you, I don't think much about Mark Rubio.
Okay. Well, then you add into probably 90% of the rest of the world that seems to be looking at it. That's why I was kind of scared to ask these questions to you.
No, I don't think much about him at all. I don't think he should be a candidate for vice president. I don't trust the man.
Okay.
He goes back on things that he says. And I remember, I don't know if David or someone asked me about this word, if I had ever heard the word white Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it one time in the 30 or 40 years that I've been in America. And that was a long time ago. And I believe that is being used as a result of Mr. Rubio.
And it probably is, and that's kind of where we stand today, and that's why I kind of wanted to ask you the questions, because currently right now, as you know, it has been talked that Romney could be looking for Mr. Rubio to take the VP slot for him, and everyone out in I guess, the Democrat or left wing, which I know you're pretty much right wing, so I kind of maybe it's filling in. that maybe Marco Rubio doesn't or isn't maybe a good ploy for the Hispanic community? That it's almost an insult to the Hispanic community to say that Rubio represents them.
That's exactly the problem. Rubio doesn't represent the Hispanic community. He represents the Hispanic community in South Florida,
okay,
which are right-wingers. I'm a right-winger, but not across the board.
I got you.
I have certain areas where I go more to the center. But with respect to Mr. Rubio, he does not reflect the Hispanic vote out west.
That's true.
The Hispanic vote out west is mainly Mexican American, and they don't identify with him at all.
Absolutely.
So if it's a ploy by Romney to get the Hispanic vote, it's going to work against him because all those people are going to go against him.
Yeah, the only thing that I see is I don't necessarily think it may be a ploy to get the Hispanic vote. It could be. I mean, I'm not in Romney's campaign at all, but the biggest thing I look at is the fact that we need someone that is charismatic and is media friendly, such as Barack Obama, to go along with Mr. Romney to kind of maybe lighten up and maybe show that Republicans can be on the cutting edge. And I think that's what he was kind of going for here. I'm not necessarily thinking he would be wanting to pull in the Hispanic vote, but that could be the ploy here. I'm not sure, but I think it's blowing up in his face a little bit.
It is.
Because the question I asked David earlier is that Cuban Americans don't associate themselves with the Mexican Latino Americans.
Not at all.
And it's almost like a different sect or a different group of people altogether. So I don't think it would be wise for these people to be pushing him as the Hispanic, I guess, coverall.
I'm not sure Rubio would even get a majority of the Cuban votes. Would he, Juan?
That's what I'm concerned about. He may not get the majority of the Cuban vote in South Florida. Now, it's I don't know if it's a ploy, like you say. We're not in his camp. We don't know what their reasons are. But I think that he's trying to create a media, a positive portrayal. Because you got to remember, like you said, the Cuban American thought process is totally distinct and different from the Mexican American thought process and beliefs. The Cuban American vote is we're capitalists, we're right wing with respect to foreign policy more so than anything else. You got to remember that South Florida is a unique place, and I think David mentioned this in one of his shows, where there's a small city called Sweetwater, and this was in the 80s. Okay, and what the platform for the mayor of the city and all the politicians were? Who was the most anti-communist? Well, what that got to do with local politics? Nothing.
Right. Well, we've only got 30 seconds left in this segment, Juan. Needless to say, I think Rubio probably would be a mistake, but that would be fine with me because I think Romney's election would hurt the future of the Republican Party unless we want to destroy it. But now
I agree with you.
We're going to have to pause for a word from our sponsors. We'll be back in 3.5 minutes. This is David Finzer with Juan Torres for Truth and Lies Radio on the Overseas Radio Network. This is David Finzer for Truth and Lies Radio on the Overseas Radio Network, and my guest tonight is our U.S. injustice expert, Juan Torres, defense attorney from the state of Florida. And now we're going to move on after having talked with possible vice presidential nominee Rubio from Florida. We're going to talk about some legal things. Juan, we were talking about an article that was Newsmax reported from Alan Dershowitz from Harvard, where the state attorney, Angela Corey, the prosecutor in the George Zimmerman case, called the dean of Harvard Law School to complain about his criticisms of some of her actions. She was transferred to the Office of Communications and proceeded to try to engage in a 40-minute rant during which she threatened to sue Harvard Law School to try to get it Dershowitz disciplined by the Bar Association and to file charges against him for libel and slander. She said that because he worked for Harvard and was identified as a professor, she had the right to sue Harvard. When the communications official explained to her that he had a right to express his opinion as a matter of academic freedom, she said she didn't understand that. She persisted in her nonstop whining, claiming that she's prohibited from responding to his attacks by rules of professional responsibility, without mentioning that she's repeatedly held her own press conferences and made public statements throughout her career. It seems her beef was that Dershowitz criticized her for filing a misleading affidavit that willfully omitted all information about the injuries Zimmerman had sustained during the struggle it described. She denied that she had any obligation to include in the affidavit truthful material that was favorable to the defense. She insisted that she is entitled to submit what is in effect were half-truths in an affidavit of probable cause, so long as she subsequently provides the defense with exculpatory evidence. What about it?
This is typical of the power abusers. This prosecutor has the power to present evidence, and she did. And the most egregious thing that she has done is she filed a motion to revoke Zimmerman's bail, alleging that Zimmerman willfully misled the court, which is exactly what she did. Because when you submit a probable cause affidavit to a judge, you should submit, when you sign it, you say that you're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And a half-truth is a lie.
So she perjured herself.
So she, in essence, she misled the court, or misled the judge.
Okay.
And Zimmerman, from what I see in this article and reading this article, what occurred in Zimmerman was he really didn't know whether he had access to this money or not. And it was just a misunderstanding between Zimmerman and his wife, the way I see it.
Okay, well, before we get to that, Juan, let's go back to how about her threats to sue Harvard and to try to intimidate them?
That's the power. This is the power. Because someone disagrees with her, she calls and threatens.
Does she have the power to sue Harvard?
Oh, she cannot sue Harvard. She can do whatever she wants. He has the academic freedom of giving his opinions.
Did he violate any rules of professional behavior?
Pardon me?
Did he violate any rules of professional behavior?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So she's just being a bully.
Opinion as to what she did, and guess what? You know, and I know, truth is a defense.
True.
And if she sues him personally, he's going to say, "This is what she did, and this is what I said." The truth.
But she has, in fact, libeled or slandered him. I mean, she actually tried to tortiously interfere with his employment. With his employment,
that would be the counter complaint against her. She would never even file a civil complaint against him. She doesn't know what she's doing. What she's trying to do is file a criminal complaint for libel slander is what she's trying to do. But guess what? The defense to that is the same. Truth will set you free.
So she is clearly, it sounds to me like she's showing herself to be an incredibly biased, out of control megalomaniac.
Yep. Power abuser. And this is, I know a lot of prosecutors that are great prosecutors. I know a lot of prosecutors that abuse powers. And this is one. I mean, this is clear. This is so clear. There's no error on behalf of Professor Dershowitz in stating that she misled the court because she didn't allege all the facts.
So based on her presumption, now let's just assume based on her presumption, you are an attorney in the state of Florida. I'm a citizen of the state of Florida. She could sue us or try to go after us.
Oh, she could. Yes, she could. But it would be fruitless. It would be a frivolous lawsuit because the truth is the defense to this.
Would she then be subject to?
We have a statute in Florida when you file a frivolous lawsuit, 57 point, I forget the number now, where he would get costs and attorney's fees.
Now, could Dershowitz file an ethics complaint against her?
I'm not sure if she went that far. He could. I don't know where it would lead to. Now, what this calls into question, David, is what prosecutors should or should not do, and the law should be that they have an obligation to tell a judge when applying for an affidavit all the facts, because the judge is making a determination of the degree of murder that should be charged or arrested for.
Okay, so she's just really over the top.
Then the judge cannot make a neutral or an unbiased decision.
Okay, we only have a few seconds left in this segment, but is the judge likely to be a little annoyed at this?
Oh, absolutely. This calls into question his ruling.
Okay, well, we'll talk about this when we come back we're at the bottom of the hour after the news in about 3 minutes. This is David Finzer with Juan Torres on Truth and Lies Radio on the Overseas Radio Network. Stay tuned. We'll be right